My name is Dick Veale. Uh, I am blessed and honored to be a heart and liver transplant person. Uh, my story actually begins back in 2002. Was blind in my left eye because of floaters, and they didn't know what was wrong, and so I went to the eye doctor, and I ended up going to a guy from UCLA who did a vitrectomy and had to take the fluid out of my eye and so on. But it got better, and I had cataracts, and I got good. So that was 2002. After that, I kind of degraded. I was I was losing my breath. I kind of had problems breathing, and I kept going to the doctors, and they said they didn't know what was wrong with me. And finally, it was 2007, and I couldn't walk from here across the room to a door without stopping to catch my breath. I was going to the head cardiologist at Mission Hospital here in California, and they didn't know what to do with me. So on February the 27th of 2007, I asked the doctor to send me someplace that I felt I was dying, and I didn't know what was wrong with me, and they didn't know what was wrong with me. So the doctor said, I think you should go to Mayo Clinic, and I'll prepare all your documents and all your test results, and so go there. At the end of the first day, they said, we think we know what's wrong with you. It's not your lungs, it's your heart, and we think it's something in your blood, but we think we know what it is. And we think it's called amyloids, which is a bad protein that your liver produces. But the, the, the good news and the bad news is, Dick, you need a new heart and possibly a new liver. So the following day, they come back with the results, and they said, yes, you need a new liver and a new heart. And we're going to put you on the list to get qualified to have a heart and a liver transplant. I came back 2 weeks later, and I went through a series of tests to get qualified to be on the heart and liver transplant list. It encompassed a shrink. They had to certify that I wasn't mentally incapable. They had to be sure that I wasn't too fat. I've always been a little overweight, but never too fat. I wasn't an alcoholic. I wasn't a druggie. Uh, all that. Interestingly enough, they found out I was a smoker. I had quit 27 years before. They said, hey, we see it in your blood and in your bones that you were a smoker. Interesting, huh? That's this little side tip. Don't smoke. In August, I really got starting to feel badly, and I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to move to Mayo. By the time I got to October, I was really feeling terrible. I couldn't function hardly at all. And I went to the clinic one day, and they kept doing tests on me, and they finally said, hey, Dick, we didn't realize you were so bad. So we're going to put a defibrillator pacemaker in on you, and we're going to put melrinone. It's going to go into your arm and catheter right to your heart, and you carry around a bag with the pump and the medicine 24/7, and we're going to keep you alive until you get transplanted, hopefully. So it was October 3rd, 4th, or 5th of 2007. I go in the hospital on Monday morning. My wife stayed over the weekend, and I go in and I get the defibrillator pacemaker put in. On Tuesday, the doctor comes in and says, how you feeling? I said, well, honestly, this is really painful here. And he says, yeah, well, we had to cut open your chest and put this pacemaker in, and the electrodes are attached to your heart. So he says, Dick, you're going to be thrilled. You can't die. I said, what do you mean you can't die? He says, well, if your heart stops, you get zapped and you'll be alive again. And I'd like one of those myself. I said, oh my gosh, well, I'm sorry you don't have one. He says, well, the sad news is that you're a stage 4. Do you know what that means? And I said, no. He says, well, you're in pretty bad shape, and if you don't get transplanted before Christmas, we don't think you're going to make it to Christmas. And I go, oh my gosh, I never realized I was so bad. Nobody had told me that. Okay, so I get everything ready. I had a Corvette, had my golf clubs, my tennis rackets, who's going to get all that stuff? I got 5 kids, but you got to be equal. And so I did a whole thing on what I wanted for my funeral, where my Corvette, my clubs are going, all that. I prepared myself with God that I was ready to go. It was a little depressing. Went through a couple of weeks of depression, I have to say, but at the end, I was ready, and I'm still ready. But the God can take me anytime. And one day I'm coming back from Mayo, and the bus driver, Grant, who is one of my friends by now, says to me, he says, "How you doing?" I says, "I'm not doing very well, Grant." I says, "I don't think I have much time left." And lo and behold, I get a phone call, and it's a 507 area code, and it's Mayo Clinic, and I pick it up, and they said, "We think we have a heart and liver for you. How soon can you get back?" And I said, "Well, I'll be back. I'm on my way to my apartment. I'll be back in a half hour." So I ended up packing my backpack to go in, and I drove in. But what do you take with you when you're going to get a transplant? Hopefully, I packed an extra pair of underwear. I packed 3 or 4 books. I packed some snacks, and I packed a little statue of Lourdes, of the Blessed Mary at Lourdes, that was full of holy water from Lourdes, that my daughter Beth had gotten me from a friend. And I put that in the backpack, and off I went. I get there, and they shave the 3 hairs off my chest because they got to prepare you. I'm on blood thinners, so I've got 2 IVs in each arm, and they're trying to get the blood thickened up by keratin or whatever they do. And so I'm sitting there, lying there, and my wife finally comes. And I got to tell you that story too, because that's really important. My wife worked for the Orange County Health Department for a while, and then she was at a site for some emergency testing or something. And I called her, and she went right to the airport, and it was Northwest Airlines at the time. It's now Delta. She goes to the counter and says, "My husband's getting transplanted at Mayo. I need to get on the first plane available." And there was a noontime flight. So she's on the plane, on the ramp, going down to get on the plane. They gave her a ticket right away. And so one of the kids called her. I have 5 kids, remember, and they're all over the country, and they're all going to Mayo Clinic. So the guy taps her in the back of her shoulder, and she turns around, looks at him, and she says, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm the pilot." I said, "I heard you're talking about transplant." And he says, "My wife had a kidney transplant. Are you getting a transplant or somebody?" And she says, "My husband is at Mayo Clinic." He says, "Well, I want to drive you down. Don't change planes. I'll drive you. As soon as the plane gets off, stops, I'll take you down to Mayo Clinic." So lo and behold, the plane lands at Minneapolis, and they announce that everybody please stay seated so that Mrs. Veale can get off the airplane with the pilot. Her husband's getting a transplant. Everybody sat still. She got up, and Pilot Pat and Holly got off the plane. So he drives her down. I'm lying there. It's at 5 o'clock at night or something, and I got the IVs in, and she comes to the door. I'm so thrilled to see her, and we hug, and then there's a guy in the door, and I go, "I haven't even gone yet, and you got a boyfriend already?" And I said, "What is this all about?" She says, "No, this is Pilot Pat. Pilot Pat drove me down from Minneapolis, and he happens to be a deacon in the Catholic Church, and he talked about giving you communion and everything." I said, "Well, I used to be Catholic. I'm Presbyterian now, but I'd love it." So he does a prayer, and I have communion, and I said, "Oh, by the way, in my backpack, I have holy water from Lourdes, my daughter got from me." He says, "Okay." He says, "I'll take that holy water," and he puts it on his hands, and he does a sign across on my face, and washes my hands with it and my feet. And they came in and got me. They said, "It's time to go, Dick." And I said goodbye, and and the next thing I know, I'm in the operating room. I wake up 3 days later, actually 2 days later. They put me in a coma, I guess, after the surgery. I'm cut from here to here and here to here. And I got shiny staples in my chest and my belly. And I'm in kind of pain, and I have a little morphine or something. I'm pumping that morphine thing, and nothing's coming out. I guess it is, but it doesn't feel like it. And I'm really and I got tubes coming out of me on my stomach and everywhere. And my wife is right there, and the kids are coming in and going out. I can see them, but I really can't focus on them, if you know what I mean. And I ended up going to an apartment that was kind of attached to the Mayo Clinic system. And I lived there for 3 months recovering from the transplant. So as I'm lying in the hospital one night, and I could hear the helicopter coming over, you know, from the airport, and I'm saying to myself, I wonder if it's another transplant, organs coming in, or maybe it's an emergency or something. And I said, but the one thing I have to do is I want to thank the family because somebody had died to give me that heart and liver. So I lived with that thought for weeks. When I got out of the hospital, I wrote a note to the family, and the what do you call it, the OPO or whatever it is, they don't allow you to have any contact with the donor family, nor contact from them to me. But I know somebody had died, and some family was suffering with the loss of a loved one. And so I wrote a note, the hardest letter I ever wrote. Thank you very much. Sorry for your loss. Sounds very simple, but it wasn't that simple. And I was going to say what happened next was I didn't get any reply. And that was, really November. And in December, I sent a Christmas card, and you send it ambiguously through the OPO and the people that coordinate the transplants. And so I can't sign my name. I can't say where I come from, California or anything like that. And there's no contact. So, okay, great. So fast forward 6 months, I'm going back to Mayo every 2 months for a checkup, and I'm doing fine. By the way, I left the end of January. When I went in to get surgery, I weighed 215 pounds. When I came out of the hospital and 10 days later, I weighed 185. I had lost 30 pounds in that 10 days. And I started gaining it back. I got a craving for butter pecan ice cream for some reason. I can't stand it now, but I loved it then. Every day my wife's going to get me a butter pecan ice cream, and I gained 20 pounds back. Well, you're going to love this because when we were waiting for the transplant, we had to go through a class, and they tell you how to deal with it. You have to wash all the fruit. You have to wash the cans that come in. You have to wear a mask all the time. You have to be really, really careful you don't get infections and everything. All right, so I asked the people in the transplant class, how long will people live with a heart transplant? And they said the average is about 10 years. Okay, great. Whatever it's 10 years, 1 year, 10 years, whatever you get left or given is really, truly a gift. And so I got along with that. But I just to say, I wanted to meet the parents. I wanted to say, if it was a parent or a wife, whatever. So a year later, I write a book, and a year later, I get a letter at Mayo Clinic. It's handed to me, and they said, we want you to be sure to know that we are so grateful that you're living in a life with our son's heart and liver. So now I want to meet them. And so somewhere along the line, they got approval to talk to me. and I'm in my office up in LA, and we arranged a call for 11 o'clock on a Monday morning, and I would talk to them for like an hour and a half, and the daughter was there too, and kid's name was Brian Pavel. He was 28 years old, and he fell off a roof in an accident in South Dakota, and landed on his head. He was brain dead, and Brian ends up giving me a heart and liver, and he gave 44 other people parts of him that survive with these people today. When I talked to them, I said, "So, what are you doing this weekend?" And they said, "We're here. We're farmers in South Dakota." I said, "Well, I'd like to come out and visit." And said, "Sure, I'd love to have you." So my wife and I fly to Rapid City, South Dakota. We come out of the baggage claim, and there's Doug and Carol Pavel, the mom and dad of Brian, waiting for us. And we hug, and the mom puts her head on my chest to feel the heartbeat of her son. And we became best friends, and we communicate all the time. I go back once a year. The daughter, we've had her out to visit. But what a wonderful opportunity. They said, "We lost our son, but you and so many people have lived because of him." And so to this day, it's been 16 years since I had the heart and liver transplant. And I'm so grateful to Brian Pavel for having the pink dot on his license that allowed him to be an organ donor. And I wouldn't be here today without Brian's heart and liver. And that's a fact. So one thing I forgot to mention, I told you about Grant, the bus driver. Grant, every day I went into Mayo to work out and so forth, and Grant would pick me up. He always saved the front row for me because I could hardly get up the stairs and get into the chair. And unless there was somebody worse off than me, he'd give him the first seat. So one morning I get up, and I'm getting in the thing, and I sit down, and Grant says, "Hey, Dick, how you doing?" I said, "I'm doing good. I'm still here, Grant." He says, "Well, do you know these people over here?" And I turn around and look, and I says, "It's a woman and a man, and he looks terrible. He's gray. I mean, his face is gray." And I said, "No, I don't know. Hi, I'm Dick." And she said, "Oh, I'm here. I'm somebody." "Okay, well, they're here for a liver transplant." And I go, "Oh, really?" I said, "Well, I'm here for a heart and liver transplant." And well, we don't qualify. My husband, he can hardly talk now, but he's doesn't qualify for a regular liver transplant. So he's waiting for an amyloid liver transplant. And I have amyloid liver. And I said, "Okay, well," we talked, and they're from Memphis, Tennessee. And I said, my stop comes up, and I get off, and I said, turn around, I said, "Hey, I hope you guys do well. I hope you get my liver. That means I got a heart and liver." And I get off the bus, and I don't pay attention much. One of the things Mayo did, they asked me if you want to donate, or it's actually, what do they call it, domino your liver to somebody else that doesn't qualify for a regular liver. They'll have the same problem you have, that your liver produced the amyloid, but they'll be able to live, a few years or whatever longer until they get the manifestations of the amyloids. Sure, why not? Signed the papers and never thought much of it. And again, I go back to Mayo Clinic, and I get a letter, and it's from a Pat Riley in Memphis, Tennessee, and it says, if you're the guy that got in the bus in shorts and handed the bus driver cookies, I think we got your liver. And so as soon as I got the letter, I left the Mayo thing, and I called I called them. I got the information. I called them. And Pat Riley, the wife, says to me, she says, I said, when did your husband get transplanted? She says, um, November the 3rd. I said, well, that's the day that I got transplanted. So you obviously got my liver. And she starts crying. She says, I can't tell you how grateful I am to have my husband back, because he's out working now. He paints oil tanks out in these fields in Kansas and so forth, in Texas. And we have 3 daughters, and a couple of them are getting divorced and coming home with grandchildren. And I couldn't do it myself without my husband. I'm so grateful that you gave us your liver. I said, glad you have it. Anyway, it's really a God thing. You have to believe in God. You have to know that He has a plan for your life. And He had a plan for my life, and I'm still here. I do good every day. I'm involved in nonprofits for homelessness and giving out food to people that need food. I try to do something good every day for my grandkids. I have 13 grandkids. So I'm trying to be a good example. I'm trying to live a good life. And thank you, God, for giving me these extra years, really. So that's it.